I get the last film, the Karate Kid 3, was did in '88.
Ralph Macchio was 22 when he filmed The Karate Kid. His bully, William Zabka, was only 17. That age gap created weird tension on set that nobody talks about. But that's just the beginning. Ralph had zero karate experience. He learned everything from scratch in 5 hours a day. During one quiet scene, he accidentally broke Pat Morita's toe and shut down filming. The most famous line in the movie wasn't even in the script, and Ralph kept a secret about his background that would shock fans. What he was hiding explains everything. Ralph George Macchio Jr. was born on November 4, 1961, in Astoria, Queens, where the streets were loud and the buildings were close. His family lived above a bakery in a 2-bedroom apartment, and his father, Ralph Sr., ran a coin laundromat business that kept him away for 12 hours a day. His mother, Rosalie, raised Ralph and his 2 brothers while stretching every dollar. Their apartment always smelled like flour and soap, and the sounds of subway trains rattled the windows. Ralph shared a room with Stephen and Thomas, where dreams had to fight for space. On Sundays, the only day his father wasn't working, they had pasta and meatballs at the kitchen table. Everyone packed in tight. Those dinners were the closest thing they had to luxury. When Ralph was 3, something on TV stopped him cold. He was sitting on his mother's lap, watching Singin' in the Rain on a black and white screen, and Gene Kelly danced like he was flying. Ralph couldn't look away. For weeks, he tried copying those moves on the linoleum floor, spinning and stomping until the noise drove his brothers insane. He wouldn't stop asking, "I want to dance like the man in the rain, Mama," until Rosalie scraped together $5 a week to get him into Miss Betty's dance studio on Steinway Street. By age 6, he was in his first recital wearing a sailor costume, tapping to "Anchors Away" in front of 50 parents. His father watched from the back with crossed arms and worry in his eyes. But Ralph didn't care. He practiced 4 hours a day until the soles of his shoes wore through. At 10, the family moved to Hempstead, Long Island, hoping for cheaper rent and better schools. Ralph joined the local theater group and acted in Oliver and the Music Man. But every Saturday, from 7 in the morning to 6 at night, he was back at the laundromat folding hot clothes, rolling quarters, and breathing in bleach. The floor was always sticky, the customers were rude, and some called him slurs because of his Italian face. He made $1 an hour and ran straight from work to acting class, still smelling like dryer sheets. His hands were raw and his head ached, but he refused to give up. When he was 12, his theater teacher landed him a Coca-Cola audition in Manhattan. Ralph borrowed a dress shirt, took the train into the city alone, and waited 3 hours next to kids with blue eyes and blonde hair. He stepped into the room and stood straight. But it only took 30 seconds. One woman said, "Too ethnic looking," and another added, "That dark hair won't test well." He rode the train home in tears, staring at his reflection in the glass. His teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, pulled him aside the next day and told him those features would make him unforgettable. He held on to those words like rope. That same year, he joined the wrestling team to shake off the Theater Kid name. He weighed 68 pounds and faced 8th graders who threw him around like laundry bags. He lost 9 matches. His only win came because his opponent used an illegal hold. One day, he was pinned in 23 seconds. His nose bled. His teammates laughed. He quit after the season ended and never stepped on a mat again. Instead, he threw himself into dance and drama, not knowing those skills would one day help him fake karate in front of millions. At 16, during a local recital, he performed an Eddie Cantor routine full of big gestures and comedy. A talent scout was in the crowd. After the show, she offered to send him to commercial auditions. Ralph didn't even take it seriously at first. Once, he even sent a friend to an audition because there was a beach party he didn't want to miss. But soon, he booked his first job, a Bubble Yum gum commercial in 1980. It wasn't just a gig. It was bright colors, pop music, and cartoon backgrounds. He danced through a bubblegum factory pushing flavors like luscious lime and banana berry split. Kids all over America saw him between cartoons. Suddenly, his classmates were staring. His name was out there. That same year, ABC cast him in 8 is Enough as Jeremy Andretti, a troubled teen who needed fixing. He was in 19 episodes during the show's final season. Teen magazines covered him with headlines. Girls screamed his name. It was the break he needed, and it led to his first major dramatic role. In 1984, he played a teenager with progeria in The 3 Wishes of Billy Greer. He aged rapidly and had only 3 wishes before dying: find his father, play in a jazz band, and fall in love. Ralph played the sickness, the sadness, and the hope with so much heart that critics couldn't look away. Just weeks before the broadcast, he'd also starred in The Karate Kid. That year changed everything. But before Daniel LaRusso, before Mr. Miyagi and The Crane Kick, there was Johnny Cade. In 1982, Ralph auditioned for The Outsiders. Over 200 kids wanted to play Johnny, but Ralph had read the book in high school and felt like he already knew the boy. Coppola noticed something in him, a quiet intensity. Ralph shaved his head for the role. He didn't care what his friends thought. In Tulsa that summer, the cast sweated through days of filming in the 95-degree heat. The death scene came last. Johnny was in the hospital bed, dying from burns he got saving kids from a church fire. Ralph looked at C. Thomas Howell and whispered the line he had added himself, "Stay gold, pony boy." Tommy cried. The crew cried. Coppola kept the cameras rolling. They stayed in character off camera, too. The greasers were housed away from the socks to build real tension. One day, Ralph and Matt Dillon fought over a prop switchblade. It started as a joke and turned into a pushing match. Nobody got hurt, but the energy was real. Ralph wasn't tough in real life. He'd never been in a fight. He hated violence. But somehow, his softness made the hard characters feel more real. The Outsiders hit theaters on March 25, 1983. It made $25.7 million, not bad, but not what they hoped. 2 months later, Return of the Jedi came out and swallowed every box office dollar. The disappointment hit hard. Ralph had given everything, but just as hope began to fade, the phone rang again. 50 audition callbacks flooded in. One of them would change his life. At the wrap party in Tulsa, Coppola gave Ralph a leather-bound script with handwritten notes inside. He called Ralph's performance truthful and honest. Ralph still keeps it in his office, but the pain of Johnny never left him. After filming, he had nightmares of the hospital scene. Over and over, he died in his sleep. He finally went to acting coaches to learn how to separate the character from himself. It was the first time he understood the emotional cost of storytelling. But it also prepared him for what came next. In 1983, Ralph Macchio stood in a small audition room with a group of Hollywood's rising stars waiting outside. He was 22, nervous, and competing against names like Charlie Sheen, Sean Penn, Tom Cruise, Nicolas Cage, and Robert Downey Jr. Everyone wanted the lead role in a new coming-of-age movie called The Karate Kid. But Macchio had something different. During his audition, he didn't just read lines. He showed his tap-dancing footwork. It was a skill he'd picked up as a kid growing up in New York, and director John G. Avildsen saw something in it. The balance, the rhythm, the control. It was exactly what martial arts choreography needed. That little tap move sealed it. Macchio got the part. And the moment he did, his whole life shifted. Filming started in Los Angeles later that year. It didn't take long for Ralph to realize something awkward. He was playing a teenage underdog, but he was 5 years older than William Zabka, the actor playing his bully, Johnny Lawrence. Zabka was just 17. Macchio was 22. That age gap created weird energy on set, especially because Macchio had to fake a New Jersey accent for the role, even though he was from New York. The accent wasn't easy to hold on to, especially during emotional scenes. He had to keep checking himself, making sure Daniel LaRusso's voice didn't drift too far from where it was supposed to be. Still, the cast made it work. The chemistry felt real, and the rivalry sold every scene. Macchio had no karate background, some childhood jiu-jitsu, but that was it. He had to learn everything from scratch. The production hired Pat Johnson, a real martial arts master, to train him. For weeks, Macchio trained 5 hours a day, working through every stance, block, and strike. He pushed his body hard. One day, during a quiet rehearsal of the bonsai tree scene, something went wrong. Macchio stepped in the wrong spot and broke Pat Morita's toe. Morita, who played Mr. Miyagi, had to be rushed off set for treatment, and filming paused for a full day. Macchio was devastated, but Morita laughed it off, keeping his calm, kind presence even through the pain. Their bond only grew stronger after that. In June 1984, The Karate Kid hit theaters and shocked everyone. Made for just $8 million, it earned $130 million worldwide. The crowds couldn't get enough. At the premiere, Macchio stepped out of the theater and was mobbed by teenagers chanting, "Wax on, wax off." Overnight, he went from barely known to international star. But fame came with fear. In a 1985 interview with People, he admitted he was already worried about being stuck. What if this role defined him forever? What if no one saw him as anything but Daniel? He was right to be concerned. Even with the success, escaping that image became one of the hardest battles of his career. The film's most iconic moment was the crane kick. It looked simple, one leg up, one smooth kick. But filming that scene took 40 exhausting takes. Macchio had a real fear of heights, and they made him balance on a thin log over water. He had to stay focused, steady, strong. Each attempt drained him. By the end, even the crew was worn out. Years later, in 2025, he revealed another secret. The famous sweep the leg line, the moment that sent chills down every viewer's spine, wasn't even in the script. William Zabka ad-libbed it on the spot during a dojo scene. Test audiences reacted with shock. That one unscripted line made the Cobra Kai dojo feel colder, meaner, more real. After the success of the first film, they headed to Hawaii in late 1985 to shoot The Karate Kid Part 2. From September 23rd to December 20th, they filmed on Oahu's windward side, which stood in for Okinawa. They couldn't use real Okinawa because the U.S. military presence had changed the landscape too much. So they built it. 7 houses, 3 acres of real crops, even brought in 50 Okinawan-born locals as extras. Macchio got hurt again. During the ice-breaking scene, he hit real blocks of ice over and over. By the 15th take, his hands were so sore, he started turning his palms to protect them. But the film was worth it. It made $115.1 million, the highest-grossing sequel of the original trilogy. But the third film was different. From the beginning, The Karate Kid Part 3 was a mess. Screenwriter Robert Mark Kamen wanted to do something bold, a dream sequence where Daniel and Mr. Miyagi would time travel to 16th century China. He imagined a wuxia-style story with a female lead, but the studio said no. They wanted the same old story. Kamen only agreed to return after they paid him more. Then came another problem. Robin Lively, who played Jessica Andrews, was only 16. Macchio was 27. They had to rewrite the entire script to remove the romantic angle and make them just friends. Then tragedy hit. Cinematographer James Crabe, who had worked on the first two films, was too sick with AIDS to finish the project. He died on May 1989, at age 57. The film ended up costing $12.5 million, but it disappointed everyone. Macchio didn't hide how he felt. In 2022, he said, "I was not a fan of how Karate Kid 3 came out. The story felt forced. Daniel's character lost his soul. It was just a copy of the first movie, without heart. The plot twisted in strange ways, adding characters that didn't belong. Even director John G. Avildsen later called it a horrible imitation and admitted it was hastily written and sloppily rewritten. Critics slammed the film. It was nominated for 5 Razzie Awards, including Worst Picture, Worst Director, and Worst Actor for Macchio. It was a painful low point for everyone involved. In 1994, the franchise tried something new. The next Karate Kid came out on August 12th, starring Hilary Swank. Ralph Macchio wasn't in it at all. He later said no one even asked him. The original creators weren't involved, and the studio moved on. Pat Morita returned as Mr. Miyagi, but the story followed a new student named Julie Pierce. There was barely any mention of Daniel. Just a quick line about how he'd moved on. The movie bombed, making only $8.9 million at the US box office. It was the franchise's biggest failure. For fans, the absence of Daniel LaRusso felt like a missing piece that couldn't be replaced. After The Karate Kid Part 3 wrapped in 1989, Ralph was stuck. He was 30, but casting agents still thought he looked 16. Too young for adult roles, not quite right for the ones meant for real teens. He didn't fit anywhere. He wasn't rugged enough for leading men, not odd enough for quirky side parts. Before Karate Kid, he had shown his depth in movies like The Outsiders and Crossroads, but Hollywood wasn't paying attention anymore. The early 90s became the most frustrating years of his life. He later admitted that even with The Outsiders and My Cousin Vinny on his resume, he still sat at home wondering if it meant anything. Roles dried up. Phone calls slowed. So he turned inward, leaned on family, and began exploring theater. Not to escape, but to survive. In 1993, he starred in a serious TV movie called The Last POW, the Bobby Garwood story, alongside Martin Sheen. Ralph played Marine Robert R. Garwood, who had been captured in Vietnam in 1965 and held until 1979. Garwood was accused of collaborating with the enemy, the only soldier to face such charges. The story was sensitive. ABC delayed the release from 1990 to 1993 because of the Persian Gulf War. Ralph gave a raw, focused performance, diving into the emotional wreckage of a man the country had turned its back on. But the movie didn't land. It aired quietly, barely made a ripple, and just like that, another opportunity slipped by. Nothing changed. The career spark he hoped for never came. That same year, he took a different route. He entered the world of independent films. In 1994, he played Chris, the gay best friend of a struggling playwright, in Naked in New York. The film was directed by Daniel Algrant and backed by Martin Scorsese. It had Eric Stoltz, Mary Louise Parker, and cameos from stars like Whoopi Goldberg and Kathleen Turner. It had everything: talent, heart, and festival buzz. But when the movie came out, most of Ralph's fans didn't even notice. He was proud of the work, but it went under the radar. It was another reminder that even when he did quality work, it didn't guarantee visibility. Hollywood had already boxed him in. He kept acting when he could, but spent most of his energy raising his family, staying close to home, and stepping off the relentless treadmill of studio casting. In 1996, Ralph took a sharp turn and stepped onto the stage. He signed on to lead the national Broadway tour of How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying. The show had won a Pulitzer Prize and a Tony, and Ralph got to play J. Pierpont Finch, the bright-eyed climber who wins the corporate game. It launched at Baltimore's Mechanic Theater on May 28, 1996. The director was Des McAnuff, who had done the original Broadway revival. Ralph's castmates included Shauna Hicks, Pam Blair, and Roger Bart. The tour stopped in places like Chicago and Green Bay and kept rolling through 1997. Ralph tapped into something old and buried: his childhood dance roots. He'd been taking tap lessons since he was 3 at the June Clare School of Dance in Long Island. In high school, he had played a chorus role in the same musical, earning the nickname the Dancing Kid. The show brought that back. Critics liked him. Audiences did too. It was a good run, but it kept him off movie screens for a while. That was the trade-off. A decade earlier, in 1986, he had already tested himself on the stage in Cuba and his teddy bear on Broadway with Robert De Niro and Burt Young. That show had moments he never forgot. Once, they performed for inmates at Rikers Island. During a struggle scene on stage, the prisoners shouted, "Sweep the leg! Come on!" They didn't care about the play. They wanted the crane kick. Ralph was nervous, unsure how serious the crowd was. He joked years later that maybe De Niro's friends were in the audience, maybe Burt Young's family. But deep down, he knew something bigger. No matter what he did, the Karate Kid would always follow him, even into the most serious roles. That day at Rikers, surrounded by real danger, he had to acknowledge it. Back in Cuba and his teddy bear, he played Teddy, a 16-year-old heroin addict and aspiring poet. It was a brutal part. Every night, he had to pretend to shoot up on stage. He lived in a house with no women, where his character had a strange, almost submissive relationship with his father, who was a drug dealer played by De Niro. Time magazine called Ralph's performance brilliant, saying he moved like a boy, ready to run at any second, always on his toes. The production had started off-Broadway at the Public Theater before moving to Broadway's Longacre Theater on July 16, 1986. It ran for 53 performances until September 24th. The story was intense, the praise was real, but the shadow of Daniel LaRusso never disappeared. By the time Ralph turned 49 in 2011, people still called him Daniel LaRusso, but he wasn't a kid anymore. That year, he showed up on Dancing with the Stars for season 12, partnered with Karina Smirnoff. Millions tuned in expecting nostalgia. What they saw instead was a real contender. On May 17th, during the semifinals, he stumbled while performing a wild jive to Great Balls of Fire and almost hit the floor. But he caught himself. That same night, the judges gave him 27 out of 30 for a foxtrot, stunned by his speed and sharp footwork. He later admitted he'd been tap dancing since age 3, a secret he'd never told anyone. By the end of the season, 20 million people had watched Daniel LaRusso cha-cha across a ballroom and finish 4th place. That surprise sparked something. 2 years later, in 2013, Ralph came across some Karate Kid parody videos online and started wondering, what ever happened to Daniel LaRusso after high school? He pitched Cobra Kai to studios with one demand: no CGI on his body. He was over 50, but wanted to do every fight himself. That nearly killed the deal. Executives didn't think anyone would buy a middle-aged man throwing kicks, so Ralph trained for 6 months. Cobra Kai premiered on YouTube Red on May 2, 2018. and drew 10 million viewers in its first week. Critics were shocked by how real it felt. Rolling Stone praised his martial arts scenes as surprisingly credible. By season 3, he was earning $100,000 an episode. The crane kick had returned, only now it was wiser. That same year, he dusted off the yellow 1947 Ford Super Deluxe convertible. It was the exact car Mr. Miyagi gave Daniel in the original movie, and Ralph had owned it since Columbia Pictures gifted it to him after Karate Kid Part 3 in 1989. For 34 years, he stored it, calling it his yellow elephant. But when Cobra Kai started filming, he brought it back and watched in horror as stunt drivers crashed it twice. First, during a parking lot chase, the bumper and headlights got crushed. Then, a second crash bent the passenger door. Repairs cost $100,000, and Ralph personally oversaw every detail at a shop in Burbank. It took 3 months to restore, and he insisted on period-correct parts. The pain was worth it. The scenes became fan favorites. By season 3, Ralph stepped behind the camera. He directed episode 5, titled Miyagi-Do. It was January 2021. He was 59. He made a rule: no stunt doubles for fight scenes. During a brutal dojo battle filmed over 4 days, he tore his meniscus trying a spinning kick he'd choreographed himself. He needed surgery 2 weeks later, but finished the episode in a knee brace. The 12-minute fight used 47 camera angles and 0 CGI. That risk got him an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Directing. The Television Academy praised the raw choreography. Ralph said the injury was worth it. It was his proudest moment. Then came the goodbye. In March 2025, while filming Cobra Kai's final episode in Atlanta, Ralph wasn't told about the tribute. In Daniel's last dojo scene, a hologram of Mr. Miyagi appeared, smiling. Pat Morita had died in 2005, but there he was. Ralph broke down crying on set. The footage went viral, 15 million views in 2 days. The tribute had taken 8 months to build and cost $500,000. The finale streamed in February 2025 and reached 65 million viewers in 1 month. Ralph called it the perfect ending to a 41-year journey. His family had walked beside him the whole time. His daughter Julia was born on May 20th, 1992, 5 years after his wedding. She sang, danced, and acted since she was little. At 5, she started dance classes. At 20, she starred in Girl Most Likely. Then, in Cobra Kai Season 4, Episode 8, she appeared as Vanessa, Daniel LaRusso's cousin. She scolded Daniel and Amanda in one scene. Ralph stood on set watching and said everyone looked around and whispered, "She's got this." He was the proudest man in the room. His son Daniel was born October 24th, 1996. Yes, named after that, Daniel. Ralph said it wasn't just about the character. Phyllis had a cousin named Daniel too, but the connection stuck. At a Little League game, when his son fell, someone yelled, "Down goes LaRusso!" Daniel grew up to compose music and even acted in a few small films, including Songs for the Drowning and Across Grace Alley. He shared photos of them at hockey games, movie sets, and Cobra Kai events, always smiling beside his father. Ralph kept his looks through it all. By 63, fans still couldn't believe how little he'd aged. A doctor once said after seeing him at a Dancing with the Stars taping, "He looks just like he did 25 years ago." Ralph credits Italian genes. His father was half Italian, half Greek, and his mother full Italian from Naples. He also skipped the Hollywood party scene. That probably helped too. He never let go of the yellow Super Deluxe. In 2019, he gave it a full rebuild for Cobra Kai Season 2. New Ford 302 engine, Holley Sniper injection, C6 transmission, Ford 9-inch rear brakes, and power steering. He could have sold it for millions, but he kept it. He still drives it to premieres. In 2025, he returned to the big screen with Karate Kid Legends, premiering May 30th. He reunited with Jackie Chan and starred alongside Ben Wang as Li Fong, a young prodigy blending kung fu and karate. Jackie was 71 and insisted on doing all his stunts without CGI. Ralph trained hard, rehearsed with the stunt team, and shot scenes right after wrapping Cobra Kai. It was his first Karate Kid movie since 1989.